So we want to thank Gavi Green, who is an alumni 2014-2016. It's always nice when we have alumni who sponsor events in Yeshiva. He sponsored tonight's Thursday Night Mishmar, and it is in memory of Sarah Bas Ruven, Alav Shalom. So we thank Gavi for that, and we are going to invite up the Shana speaker, Mr. Gavi Green. So this week's Parsha, in like the middle of the Parsha, it says, so the Parsha talks about the Parsha is talking about the carbon soda. So it mentions the carbon soda. So there's a story that I heard once of one spring morning. There was a young Jewish boy who was flying from Boston to LA. He gets to the airport early. He decides he's going to put on his phone in the airport. So finally he boards the plane. Watch the doors close, and he looks down, starts rummaging through his carry-on. He finds that he doesn't have his tefillin with him. So he realizes that he left his tefillin on the seat next to him where he was sitting. So he jumps up out of his seat, approaches the stewardess. He politely explains the situation. He asks if it's possible to go back and retrieve his tefillin. It's in the seat, which is just a few short feet away from the gate. Explains it, and the stewardess says no. So he keeps trying to explain. It says very valuable, very important. And the stewardess still insists that she cannot open the doors because procedure says the door closes and no one can leave. So she can notify the airport security, and the team could go and search this terminal and find his tefillin. So after a few minutes of arguing, he realizes that it's useless. He doesn't want to sit down, so he asks if he can speak to the pilot. But surely the pilot will understand where he's coming from. Cause enough ruckus, so they decide to ask the pilot. The pilot, again, refuses, stating that the rules are the door closes and you cannot open the doors. So he doesn't trust the airport. He didn't trust the airport security, find his tefillin, and keep him safe until he gets back. He doesn't want to lose out on the precious mitzvah of putting on tefillin, or the possibility of them getting lost. So he starts yelling, saying, "I'm going to lose my tefillin. They won't let me get my tefillin." So everyone starts turning and looking at this guy, thinking he's crazy. The crew tries to hush him. First, politely ask him to be quiet and sit down. Soon their pleas become more forceful. He refuses to stop making a fuss. Rather, he starts to become louder. This carries on for a few minutes. Even the other passengers start to complain. At this point, the flight crew gave in. They told him to make an exception, we'll let him off the plane, simply because he's a nuisance. So he assumes that he can get off the plane, go grab his tefillin, and run back. Says it will take less than 90 seconds for him to get off the plane, run, pick it up, and come back. They open the door, he gets off, and they close the door right behind him, and they seal it. No matter, he decides, instead of losing his tefillin, which is going to cost him great inconvenience and also might cause him business loss, for he has a meeting that he has to get to, he leaves the plane, never reboards. That flight was United Airlines Flight 175. The second plane to hit the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001. Everyone on that plane died. Only one Jew was spared, which is this young man who decided that his tefillin is worth more than making it to his destination. But it doesn't end there. Originally, the terrorists had planned that both towers would be struck simultaneously to maximize the explosive massacre. Later it was learned that due to this uproar, takeoff of Flight 175 was delayed, causing 18 minutes between the striking of the first tower and the second tower, which led to thousands, possibly even tens of thousands of people being saved, just because one Jew did not forsake his love of tefillin. So what do we see from this? Sometimes we don't know what our actions can cause. The Gemara explains that we bring the Karban Toda for 4 reasons. We crossed the ocean, crossed in the desert, healed from sickness, or released from jail. The Pasuk states, L'Ratzonchem. Rashi says that Ratzonchem means L'Ratzon Lachem. Gain favor for yourself. The offering should be slaughtered in such a way that God finds it favorable for you and that you find it acceptable. The Chasam Sofer says L'Ratzon Lachem, meaning that even though it's a hard time, some people are going to say they're grateful for being healed from being sick. They're going to then think, but if I wasn't sick, then I wouldn't have had to be healed. So it comes to teach us that willingly means that we bring the Karban knowing that it was the best, whether it was for kapara, whether it was to make us stronger, whether it was to make us more compassionate. You realize it's for the benefit of yourself. From here we learn that you don't always understand the plan of Hashem, but you realize it's always in our favor. So we have this chus to have all good in our lives and no bad.
Sarah wakes up suddenly to the sound of crying in her house. She doesn't know what's going on. She tiptoes outside her room. She goes closer to a door, which is ajar in the corridor, and she's crying gets louder. She looks inside, she peeps in. She sees a flickering candle and her newlywed husband, Yankel, shockling with a siddur. She looks at her watch. It's 12 o'clock at night. What's he doing? I don't know what's going on. She tries to go back to bed, but to no avail. She can't fall asleep. Dawn comes, and Yankel goes out to work, but he's got a towel around his shoulder. Sarah's like, oh no, he must be going to the mikveh. I can't believe it. On a regular day? What is this? So she decides to ease her mind. She decides to do some housework. And she goes, as she's moving the beds around, she sees a book right underneath Yankel's pillow. And this is it for her. This is it for Sarah. She doesn't know what she's doing. She bursts into tears. She runs to her parents' house. She's like, Tati, my son, my husband, he's doing strange things. He's hiding things from me. What's going on? So Sarah's father responds. He says, let me go there right now and I'm going to see what is he hiding? What's this book he's got under his pillow? So he goes to the pillow. He goes to the house. He takes it and he sees this none other than the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, a Hasidic book. Sarah's father goes purple in the face. He goes crazy. He goes angry. He's not sure what's going on. He's like, do you know who this was written by? He's like, this is a student of the Baal Shem Tov. He's like, do you know these guys? They call themselves Hasidim. They're terrible. They do strange things. First they married my daughter. What next? Eventually he goes to his friends and he tells them all about this. They all go crazy, like a chassid in our town, Hasidic. What is going on? This is disgusting. And eventually the town is there's a big matzav. It's in a rile. So eventually the words, they reach the ears of the Paretz. The Paretz is the landowner, and he's like a rich guy, you know. He has a palace, and he's the man on the streets, you know. Everyone's scared of him. So the Paretz hears this. He's like, "Why are these Jews fighting about it?" So his servants tell him, they're like, "Oh, he's they're fighting over a book. It seems some person's son-in-law is reading this book, and people aren't happy." He's like, "What? They're reading a book? You know, what? Is it against their Torah or something?" No, they say no. It was written by Yaakov Yosef HaKohen, and he's a chassid from the town of Polonoia. And so the Paretz goes, bring me this book, I want to see it. He looks at the book. He says nothing. His face goes pale. He says, bring me all the Jews. All the Jews come to his house nervously. They're not sure what's going on. They're like, what's happening? What does the Paretz want from us? He's going to kill us? What is this? The Paretz goes, it's time for me to tell you a story. Once upon a time, I was a general of an army near the town of Polonia, and the guy above me, the commander, the thing above the general, he told me to move positions. So I counted my men and tried to see how many people I had left. I noticed that there were 3 men missing. So I sent my soldiers to find out what was going on. And my soldiers came back with a strange story. They said that the soldiers are in this rabbi's house, and they're stood, frozen still. And they can't talk or move. And so the Parsha doesn't believe it. Like, what are you talking about? He sent another group of guys. They come back with the same story. So the Parsha is like, it's time for me to go myself. So the Parsha goes himself. He goes, and he sees, lo and behold, he goes into this house, and there's a Rav sitting at the table. And this Rav, right in front of him, there's 3 soldiers which were missing, and they're not moving like this. And the Parsha is in disbelief. He doesn't know what to say. He can't say anything for a bit. After a while, he sums up the courage, and he asks, he says, Rav, can you help me unfreeze these guys? And so the Rav says, your soldiers stole something from me. They need to give it back. Take it out of the pockets, and once you've taken the stuff out of the pockets, they'll be unfrozen. So they do that, and only 2 of the soldiers unfreeze. And then they look in the boot of the other soldier, and they found he's stolen some more things. And eventually, they all 3 unfreeze. Turns out it was Pesach night, and the Rav was sitting at the table with shiny dishes, and these soldiers walk past. They can't believe their luck. The door is open. He's just opened it for Eliyahu and Navi. And they walk in, and they steal all his stuff. And once they tried to leave, they couldn't leave. But the Rav says, so the Paritz asked the Rav, thank you for unfreezing my soldiers. He said, can you please tell me when I'm going to die? He says, I'm not going to tell you when you're going to die. But what I can tell you is this. I'll give you a hint. He says, just before you're about to die, you're going to tell a story to a group of Jews. This very story that just happened to you. So the Paritz says, now do you see, he says to all the Jews of the neighborhood, he says, now do you see why you shouldn't be so angry that Yankala is learning this book? This man is a holy man. You guys should stop fighting at once. Now, why am I telling you this story? This week's Parsha, Parshat Emor, it says, when Hashem said to Moshe that you should tell the Bnei Yisrael, saying that anyone that desecrates Hashem's name, anyone that blasphemes Hashem's name, he will bear his sin. Now, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Samach Amud Aleph, it says that really you should tear your clothes. Every time you hear some kfira, you should tear your clothes. But Rabbi Chia says that the amount of kfira we hear nowadays, my shirts will be full of holes, so really we don't have to do it anymore. So the Zohar says about this word kfira is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's coming up to Lag BaOmer. I've got everything in here. He was walking Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and they came to a puddle, and Rabbi Yossi slipped, and he says, if only that puddle wasn't there, then I would be better. It would be better. My clothes wouldn't be ruined. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, with this pasuk that you can't desecrate Hashem's name, it's a sin to say anything about that God created for the sake of the world. You can't say that it shouldn't be there. Any single thing that Hashem created is meant for a purpose. And so, how many times do we find ourselves saying things, oh, if only I didn't do this, if only I wasn't there. How many times do we find ourselves completely blaspheming entire communities? The Hasidim are like this, just like in the story. How many of you have found yourself, me included, saying, Charedim this, Datilu me this? You make generalizations, groups of people, and that is exactly what it means when it says, you will bear the sin of your guilt when you blaspheme Hashem's name. So I give you a bracha that you should always zocha to not be like the Jews of Polonia and not make general assumptions about the Hasidim, and realize that everyone is holy in their own way, and really you don't know anything about these people. Maybe they could have unfrozen some soldiers, and maybe they could have, you never know how much Torah they know. And I hope you have a great Shabbos and Lag BaOmer.